through this little thing here. Let me just pull up this tab. So we had our pack call earlier this week on Tuesday, and Pete was on the call, and you had a great question, Pete, which was this idea of being more transparent as a business, and it was around some of the commentary that we were discussing at the moment of, like, we all pretended to be pretty large businesses when we were getting started, buy the Grasshopper IVR and pretend like there's a big company behind the phones. But transparency goes a long way, and so we're going to get into that a little bit today, because I thought it was a fascinating thing to explore. It's super powerful, not only client facing, but also internally as you grow your teams and all that stuff. And I'm sure, Pete, as you go through acquisitions as well, a lot of this really comes to the surface. So a couple things to remind everybody about. We do have this cool events calendar that you can sign up to see or be in the know of all the things LCI that are happening. One of them specifically is the new to LCI weekly event. Mark, tell us a little bit more of the MO of this weekly event, because it's like a 4-session series that just continues revolving. And
so our weekly sessions are, first week is data cleanup, second week is building a budget, third week is all about assessments, fourth week is recommendations, and sometimes if we have a fifth week like we would have in November, we would be talking about business reviews and scheduler and how to build a QBR quickly. And if you tab one more, Louise, there you go. It's 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern, 30 minutes of canned content, 30 minutes of Q&A. And then our new class is new to CS, new to customer success. And Casey Adams is actually holding that down. It is recorded. It is one of the new things that we're presenting so that people who have customer success with Lifecycle Insights have the ability to actually learn more about the product, the things that we're doing, and basically it's basically just like new to Lifecycle Insights, where it's content driven for people who are new to it, and that's what we're doing for customer success. And I'm gonna hand it over to Louise as far as where we're going to be next.
Yeah, thanks. And by the way, I think as you bring on new people to the team, make this part of your standard onboarding, get folks to go through some of these things, even if they're not necessarily in a VCIO or account management or customer facing role. I think understanding the process and some of the stuff that's critical to enable proper reporting and all those things can be super helpful. We're in a few events where I'll be at 7-Figure next week, in case anybody's going out to Chicago for that. And then we're connecting straight to Exchange, which is in Nashville. We've got ASCII in Toronto. There's not many events in the Canadian cities, and so it's always great to get some folks out to Toronto. We'll be back in Chicago for ASCII Edge at the end of September as well. And there's some other stuff down the line. First week of October, we'll be down in Miami for DattoCon, and there's a few other stuff, things in October. We have everything on our skillpad.com/events site, so feel free to check that out. And then IT Nation in November, and that's the big one. Big part of the team comes down for that. So if you're coming out to that, let us know. We'd love to hook up. So our workshop next week, or our call next week, I invited Aaron Kennedy in. Aaron Kennedy is our GM for the Cognition 360 business. And although it's specific to ConnectWise Manage, what I wanted to get him to come in and do is, from the best practices perspective of everything he's seen MSPs doing well or not so well, come in and talk about KPIs and metrics and some of that fun stuff. So please join us for that. I think it'll be a super interesting call. Aaron was also an MSP. He sold to All Covered, which is a big operation. And so I think there's a lot we can learn from Aaron next week. And today, again, Pete, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to just come on and spend a little bit of time with us. I totally stole this picture from the Applied Tech website. Love the jacket, and so thanks. We got into this topic of the transparent MSP, and so why did you say that during the call this week? And sort of tell me a little bit about your journey in transparency, or your business's journey through transparency?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to a couple of things, and some of it's self-serving as the business, but some of it's altruistic as far as the client's concerned. One of the things that I guess I've really been trying to push our team to think of as we move the business forward, especially from a scalability standpoint, is like, how do we present our data to the client in a way that's meaningful to them, that's not just a bunch of reports. Like, I think I made the joke on the call earlier that the only person that likes a report is an auditor. You know what I mean? Like, to just send out a report every month, or oh, here's your report for EDR, and here's your report for your phishing attempts, and your all these other things. Like, there's so many reports, and there's so much time that goes into generating those things, and building the value, and all of that. Whereas if we take the step back and go, how do we get as transparent as possible? And I mean, be prepared to like lift the covers up and let our clients see their data without hiding behind nestled tickets, and cleaning up reports before they get sent, and present it in a way that's just, if you want to know what we're doing, you can log in at 11 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, noon, whatever, and just see where your system sits from a backups perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a security, whatever it might be. And we're really pushing, I'm really pushing our team as we start to really develop a platform team, and a little bit of a DevOps group and stuff like that, to figure out how do we push more and more as we look at solution partners, and what we're bringing to the table for our what we're selling as packages and everything else. Can we design that in a way that we can present that data to our clients in a single pane of glass, and they can read it real time, so that we don't have to always get those requests, and feel like we're kind of reactive to the value proposition of what we're doing.
Well, let me put you on the spot for a sec, because I think you said something that is maybe perceived as a motion or a muscle that only larger MSPs can really flex, which is this DevOps piece. Somebody that has the know-how to go and connect all the pieces, and do all this sort of reporting, API driven gathering, and build the report outs, or the stuff that is specific to what you're wanting to do. And so I think a lot of small MSPs look at that, and either they don't have that expertise and don't have that muscle, and just kind of be like, oh, well, we just collect the reports and assemble them and send them out and hope for the best. Where would you start, as a smaller team, on this, I guess, DevOps journey, or a COO really journey? Because I think this is kind of the part of the role of a COO in a way.
Right. I think it's part of the equation of picking out what goes in your solution stack at the end of the day. You don't necessarily have to build it yourself. And I think it originally came up when we were talking about what APIs were going to be presented as, part of the new, evolution of kind of where ScalePad was going with stuff. But I'm trying to be careful what may or may not be protected under NDA. But, instead of worrying about the APIs and having a team that can pull the data out of APIs and push it into other spots via API or whatever, one of the things that we're starting to look for when we look at solution partners to join kind of our stack that we sell to our clients is, are there already more direct integrations into like our reporting platforms and stuff like that, so that we don't have to necessarily have the muscle to do all that coding and data mining and collation ourselves, and really like, all right, ScalePad, if this is what you guys want to do, are you working with let's say like Cloud Radial, for example, or somebody, and can we just, turn on a module somewhere that starts to present some of that data? So, and adding that to kind of the evaluation of the vendors. A lot of people like, hey, everybody bought Cisco because you never got fired for buying Cisco or IBM, insert, certain vendor here, right? And I think there's a lot of hype around, certain security vendors and everybody else. And some of it's driven by the right price, which again is a little bit of a benefit of scale, but really it's not just that, but what do I get for that price? And it's not just client facing price, it's the internal rate of return on that investment of bringing that solution to the table, into the mix. And does that already exist? Because there's a lot of money that you don't have to invest if those connections already exist.
So I want to double click on something there, which is sort of this idea of the transparency of your own vendor relationships, which is, I think, an interesting component. And you said it, like, nobody gets fired for buying Cisco. And I think MSPs, even whether it's Cisco Meraki or whatever, I think Cisco's own motion to go and penetrate the market through the reseller network is to enable them to talk about Cisco to a certain extent and sort of leverage that brand as the MSPs go to market with it. But I still find there's a lot of maybe this old-fashioned muscle memory of like, no, I want my MSP name, network, or MSP name EDR service, or MSP name this and that. And there's a lot of obscurity in who the vendor or the service provider is. Sometimes it's simply practical because it's nice to slot out a service and replace something without having to change your entire go-to-market strategy, or have to go talk to all your clients about it, or if they feel like you needed their approval before you could change out your EDR platform or something like that. But so where's the balance? And let me ask you a bit of how your journey has been in how you talk about your own vendor relationships to your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we had the traditional journey, especially when we were a younger MSP and really getting on the scaling journey of like, all right, what can I get for the best price that provides the minimum viable product that we need to say that we're checking a box, right? So if it was like EDR, for example, right? Like, let's look at 3 or 4 of the top vendors and which ones honestly check the box, and what price are we getting per endpoint, and what kind of margin can we, like all of those things that go into like their product development to sell. And I think that's like, for the longest time, we stopped there. You know what I mean? Like, all right, we know that we can make margin on this. We know it's going to check the box. Let's sign up for it. Let's do it, and let's move on. And I think as we've tried to scale through some of that and honestly focused on, the partnership that we have with the solution partners. I sit on the advisory council here along with a couple of the other big names in the industry. And it's more about being able to go, all right, beyond just that transactional part of the relationship, how do we start to engage and look for those other areas that will help move the business forward? Because again, a lot of our vendors, you guys are software developers, you guys understand the APIs and the code, and you can do a lot of that a hell of a lot better than I could, or my team could, or whatever. Why not try to find ways to influence and encourage that into the core product versus it being our secret sauce? I don't know, there's a little bit of the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing here, and being transparent is something that I think will elevate our industry as a whole. And those that are willing to be transparent are going to use that to unlock market cap that they wouldn't have had before, just because there's a lot of people that hide behind well, I believe that, you just need to believe that we're taking care of you, right? And what does that mean? And, I hate to say it, but like we've reached the point where MSP has been commodity for a while now, and there is no the quality of service that we provide is going to be what sets us apart over a particular tool in our stack or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think Brian said it in the chat. There is really no secret sauce. I think there's only execution and service, and that's it. And you can't do any of the other things unless your server's house is in order, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think, in terms of the whole vendor thing, I think there's a clear shift from my perspective. And what I'm seeing MSPs doing in delegating the throat to choke as well on the cybersecurity front. Like, I don't think any MSP wants to own EDR these days, or own the tool that's going to get, the customer in trouble or have an issue down the line. I think either way, insurance is going to come chasing after everybody in the supply chain regardless. But it seems like that's a little bit of the trend right now. Certainly people trying to create a little bit of a layer of separation, if you will.
Honestly, I think a part of it too is how do we ask the channel to mature along with the market, right? And there's I guess anybody could come up with a great idea and go try to turn an idea into a product and go resell it. And there's a lot of that that's been successful, right? There's a lot of names even in the ScalePad kind of brand that were that ex MSP owner did something, was really great, moved it on to the next thing, did that. What bringing something like ScalePad or any of the other big ones together to then take that product and elevate it, I think is where we need to help the channel mature a little bit. And again, pushing even the channel to be more transparent, I think would just help us all. It'll cut out the random things that are going to be those gaps when regulation comes, or we could afford a 50-cent EDR. Is that really, I mean, it checks a box, but is that really EDR at that point? And what are they doing? And, you know, are they going to stand up in a pinch and those things, or whatever it may be, right? So I think there's a challenge to, you know, as we get pushed for operational maturity as a business and as a, you know, what we do, how do we get those to kind of mature along with us?
Sure. Well, and for everybody's context, you know, the conversation around transparency from the pack call was because Pete asked us about security and what are we doing to help, you know, raise this tide and continue to try and keep up with the industry progress and so on. And so we shared in that moment that we have been going through our SOC 2. We achieved it at the company level and for a couple of our products, and we're bringing everything in for the ride as well. But it occurred to me in that moment that we haven't really been talking about it, or I think my whole point is that communicating in a transparent way is also like a muscle that you have to develop over time. It's a habit you create. You don't necessarily think about it, and it's not because you're trying to hide anything necessarily, unless you're an Evo, you know, MSP vendor. But we're certainly not trying to hide it. It's just some, you know, the situation is created from a little bit of the organic, you know, transition from bootstrap startup to getting a little bit larger and doing some more interesting things. There's, you know, the speed right now of things and the pace of change is still crazy. And so sometimes you just fall behind on doing some of these little muscle things, but it's a great thing to remind yourself about. Was there something that triggered sort of this pivot in your own business that was like, you know, we can't have this happen again. We need to change the way we go to market here.
Yeah, and that's, I made the comment about, you know, this started as a self-serving kind of thing for me. So I make no bones about it inside of our organization. Like I am the operator, and I love to tear things apart and put them back together. I love to look for the efficiencies and the maturity and how we build that out. I'm not always the best people person. So like, I know all of our employees. I have a you know, a personal desire to see their success through, but like, I know I see people with salary, right, to a certain extent. So like when I started looking at our clients, and this kind of comes, you know, full circle to like, how do we manage accounts and account management and stuff like that, was we are spending an awful lot of time engaging with clients on stuff like, let's review your, you know, your phishing report together. And we can talk about the 2 or 3 employees that failed. And if you want to, it's like, that was a 30-minute conversation with an account manager whose total annual earnings is north of $100,000 or whatever it may be, for 2 people that failed a, you know, a phishing, you know, simulation.
Right. The impact is not there.
You know, the return on that is, but like, how do we, you know, how do we solve for that? I can't get that time back, and I really can't charge for that time. And how do I, and it doesn't really lead anywhere. It's not like that conversation with the account manager turned into, you know, a project of any particular note or, you know, agreement or whatever, because they already have those solutions in place. So if we can allow the clients to self-serve, it reduces the time that our team has to put in to achieve those that same level of kind of, here's the, you know, without it being a report, because they get the report in, you know, I don't know, they miss it or whatever, or it's the once a month and they want to know on the 15th versus the 1st, or, you know, or heaven forbid, right, we're only as good as our last, you know, mistake in a lot of cases. So like, we had that service fall down because it happens, and somebody up the chain goes, all right, well, this event happened. What are they actually doing for us? And if our point of contact doesn't have the ability to quickly turn around and say, here's all the other value that they're providing, this is a point in time, let's move on. You know, the ability to allow them to log into a portal, self-serve all of the things that we're doing and see all of that, and ideally, you know, have it in a positive state, just helps reinforce our ability to work all through those things, but not have to put in all of the muscle time to muscle through those situations when they come up. So it started as a self-serving idea of, how do I cut down the amount of time our account managers are putting into these things that aren't driving a lot of additional value, but we kind of have to go through these motions because we're selling these services and delivering these services. And then it kind of morphed into, well, if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that we're doing a really damn good job, because they're going to be able to log in whenever. And then that kind of evolved into the, well, we are doing a really great job. We should stand up on a podium and let our clients see this all the time, and then use that as a way to set ourselves apart in the market along the way. So it kind of evolved into the more of the altruistic. We're not going to hide anything. We'd love for you to see it, but it really started with how do I get by with less? You know.
Well, let me challenge you on something, because I think that's a great initiative, obviously, but there is, I think, a chasm between the client that you can engage manually into a meeting to talk about something, and the client that has developed their own muscle memory to actually go self-serve this. And I think that's born from this idea of shared accountability, setting the right expectations, driving the behaviors that expect the client to do certain things and participate in their own rescue, so to speak. And I think that's a really difficult thing to do. I think a lot of small MSPs have evolved from sort of, let me take care of that. And I think the clients are accustomed to simply delegating it all out to the MSP and not having to be involved except in the things that, require a budgetary approval. So like, where is a little bit of that starting point to try and really drive the shared accountability from your experience? Now that and try to put on your 7-person MSP hat for a second as you revisit that. But
right. So I think that's probably where our maturity is lacking right now. And that's honestly, it's a conversation that I even had this week inside of our business, was developing that shared accountability, because I think it's hard. And it came up because I think I signed up for another one of ScalePad services last week or something. And like, we signed up, the tenant turned on, and then we logged in, and it did its job of like, hey, try this, and here's the onboarding for that. But we had to be invested in like diving in and trying to get the value out of it, as much as, I could have called, anybody, and they probably would have, gotten me an account manager and an implementation person or whatever to help kind of work through it. But then I looked at that and I said, all right, how do we, to your point, like when we go in, we sell it, we build a relationship, we sell it, we sell a contract, we do all these things. Our onboarding team comes in, person or whatever it may be, and they onboard the client, they deploy our tool stack, they do all of this. Our account manager or salesperson, depending on your size, maybe it's you as the owner, right? You start to have these conversations, but for a lot of it, it's, here's what we bring to the table for you. We want to help you put together a budget. We want to help you do all these things. And then we have to like really drive that into their business sometimes, because having been a smaller company, right, there's a lot of times like you manage your success by the money in the checking account, right? We have a lot of clients that are still in that mode of operation, right? Like, we can't sign that project because we didn't get paid by a vendor or whatever. And so like that still exists out there a lot. How do we separate and start to develop, right? These are the strategic clients that are really engaged and they really want to drive this. And honestly, this is where we should be putting our time. And a lot of it came down to, and like the KPI stuff that you're talking about, next week with Aaron too, is like, look at your data that you have. Everybody should hopefully have some level of data, whether it's in PSA or whatever. And we stepped back and we said, all right, we have, for us, 500 clients, right? Even with 500 clients, 80% of our project work comes from the top 20% of those clients. They're the ones that are engaged, they're strategic, they want to spend the money, they have the budgets, they do all those things. That's, whatever, 80 clients, 100 clients, whatever it may be. Do we develop a system that works for all 500, or do we start to build a tiered engagement?
Right. Go deeper with the 20%,
Go deeper with the 20%. And it really, and then how do we start to say, all right, let's check in with the others and say, all right, are you ready to engage with us at that level? And if not, here's this great platform that you can log into and you can self-serve, and we'll provide documentation, and we'll even train you if you want. You can call us anytime. It's almost like, I guess for me, I started looking at like, the SaaS and the channel and saying, all right, these are how all these software companies are coming to market for us and how they engage with us from an account management perspective, from an onboarding perspective, from all these things. How do we learn from that? Because there's a lot of do more with less there, right? You see account managers managing, 400 or 500 accounts in a software organization. How do we grow to that scale and our ability to do that? And a lot of it comes down to, if a partner is willing to engage, you will engage deeper. If the partner is not willing to engage, you'll go as far as you can or need to until they're ready to engage. So we are starting to study that a little bit and see how we could potentially apply that to the MSP model to say, all right, we're going to build checklists or questionnaires or whatever it may be. Let's send them out once a quarter, once a year. If they start answering those in a way that makes it, seem like they're ready to engage, they want to do those things, then we'll, unlock the doors and open them up, and we'll go as deep as they want to go. And it's really been driven by that.
Well, one quick comment before I call on Brian is I think you've identified also something that is a very much a learned activity or learned muscle memory thing to do, which is cycling out those clients that are not engaging is also very difficult to do for smaller MSPs. So I think a lot of smaller teams become just stuck in the cycle of like, I can't move my clients forward, but I'm not prepared to let them go, whether it's an emotional attachment or just, a monetary one, because we just don't have enough new business coming in. And so, I think there is a between a wall and a hard spot situation there for a lot of smaller teams that hopefully they can unblock. And sometimes you just take the hit, cycle out that really noisy, unengaged, difficult to work with client. And when we did it at my MSP, each one of those freeing up those clients' futures suddenly turned into 2 or 3 new opportunities because we were suddenly of the mindset of growth. And I just don't know if you just attract that because you changed, that light bulb for a moment, but it certainly happened in my case. Brian.
Yeah, I was curious. You mentioned you had 500 clients, right? I mean, at what point do you feel like you grow to a big enough size where you stop taking on new logos and just focus on trying to lift up your existing client base? Is that kind of, or where did you get to in your growth where you realized, hey, it's not all about just getting new logos. We need to look back at these clients as well, right?
I think if you were to ask our board, it's all about getting new logos still, like there's a desire to continue to add, organic growth and continue to drive that. I think what it really, for us, it was it's a scalability question, right? And it happens and Louis, to your point, right? Like it's, something works up to a certain point. And for us, I got into applied tech when we were about, say, like 7 million or so. We had about 40-ish employees when I started. We're at roughly 34 million right now with 150-ish employees, right? When we hit the 10 million mark, that we had to change how we were engaging with everybody. And when we organically got to that part pretty well. I think we'd only done like 1 acquisition up to that point. Getting to like the 12 and 15 million mark, we did a couple smaller acquisitions in there, but a lot of that was driven by organic growth. There was another kind of reflection point to say, all right, because one good account manager can deliver a lot of really great service, but when you get to a certain point that now you have 2 account managers or 2 outside salespeople, how do you build a repeatable system around that? Is kind of where those opportunities came to say, is this the right way to do it? And how do we drive it beyond just one person's capabilities and kind of go from there? And then the scaling problem happened where it's like, all right, I would say we ended, I think 20 years at 23. We ended 2021, at about 16 million. We ended 22 at 33 million. And so there was a lot of just doubling in size. Holy shit, how do we make this work? How do we bring different markets together? How do we scale it? And that's where a lot of the desire to, like, I'm not a trailblazer, like somebody's already done it better than I could probably think to do it. So let's start studying other industries and how others go to market with this stuff and how do they manage it to understand, is there a better way that we could kind of refactor it and apply it to us? And then that's where the whole, let's focus on our top 30%, because I can hire a couple of really good account managers or VCIOs or solution architects or whatever, focus there, and that will continue to drive the project revenue and the agreement renewals that we need to maintain our, the value and revenue growth strategies that we have. And then the other, 70%, it's not like we're leaving them behind. It's just, we need to find a different way to engage. It's kind of like how we engage with an SMB client versus how we engage with a mid-market client. They're 2 different things,
So I think there's something that is maybe a presumption in Brian's question, which I think is interesting, because I think in a way you're kind of also suggesting that growth sacrifices service. And I think part of the interesting things of going into a growth phase is you just need to do that parallel to also improving service and also scaling, you know, the capabilities of the project team or the onboarding team or what have you. Because honestly, I mean, most 7-person MSPs would be crushed with 3 new clients in the same month, is the reality. But and so that was just a comment. But Brian, I think you were going to say something else.
Well, and I love where you went with that, Pete, because what I'm finding is there is a segment of how you deliver services, right? If you're dealing with SMBs and you've reached a certain maturity level as an MSP, the average SMB you deal with is going to be less mature than you. And you're going to feel like they're holding you back from being able to make the impact you're hoping to make with their account. Whereas the larger enterprise companies or mid-market, in a lot of cases, they might be more mature than you. So they're almost dragging you uphill, helping you become a better company and welcoming anything and everything you can do for them versus pushback because of lack of proper education, right? And so with a company your size, I'm almost wondering if you have 2 different divisions, right? You got your mid-market enterprise division. This is the way we service and handle them. And then you've got your SMB division, and this is the way you service and handle them. Because I wouldn't want to put a VCIO who's trained well to deal with SMBs in front of a mid-market enterprise, right? That's different types of discussions. That's different, you know. So that's what I was digging into as well. But I like that you brought that up, Louis, because that was a concern, right? You grow. Where does your quality of service start to go down, and who keeps an eye on that? You know.
It really depends on kind of what your goals are through growth too, you know, and I could say, you know, we've managed to maintain, depending on who you know, what metrics you use, you know, but if you're, you know, in the SLI realm, we've managed close to best in class through that growth. So I can say that, you know, my lowest point in the last 3 years was maybe 46% margin. My highest point was 56%, you know, service margin and stuff like that. Where, you know, part of that comes with scale. Part of that comes with the ability to go to, you know, a Huntress or somebody and say, you know, 20,000 endpoints, what's your price, right?
We're paying too much. Yeah.
There's economies of scale that come with that, right? To help. I don't want to diminish that. And service does fall down occasionally because when you grow that quickly, there's turmoil inside the business. So part of what we're trying to accomplish is how do we minimize that disruption as best as we can? And think of it like, how do we keep our retention rate high? You know, like there's a certain level of retention, you know, loss of client business that we're willing to accept. It's just natural as part of doing business. How do we maintain those? And some of it's an investment strategy of maybe we need to overstaff leading into an acquisition or something to be able to cover those gaps. Maybe it's we react quicker to market conditions and you know, do what we need to in certain situations if they come up. Part of it's building a performance culture, and you know, we can pay more. We have more A players. They can handle more of these situations on the fly a lot better. You know, some of that comes with scale and culture and some of those things. Because I can appreciate, you know, I remember being an ops manager and thinking, holy shit, how do I afford the next $60,000 salary? And now it's like, oh, $100,000 tech. My payroll's, you know, $1.5 million a month. It's a drop in the bucket, you know. So there is other economies of scale that come with growth to make some of those decisions as you go. But to your point, that's something that we're actively talking about too, is how do you engage and build process and procedure in the organization to affect SMB over enterprise, because it is a different game. I have a team of 6 that can manage 70 clients, and I have a team of 6 that's dedicated to 1 client, you know, and it really depends on, you know, and there's a separate help desk ticket process and methodology and engagement and all of those things that we do with that, you know, that account versus how we handle those other things. And it takes a lot of muscle initially to figure out how to get through that, and that you do lose service quality as you work through it. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. So
yeah, I think there's varying philosophical approaches to that, and I think in the early stages of building out the business, we are being academically rammed the standardization aspect of it. You know, all things to all clients, and you know, and it's operationally complex to go deploy a whole new process for just the one client or the two clients. And I think it's obviously more difficult to do the smaller the businesses. I'm not saying it's easier when you're a large business either necessarily, but certainly it seems like you have to, there's a trade-off to introducing operational complexity to the business, and sometimes, you know, the service suffers as a result. But that's super interesting, Pete,
And I
that
do
you're
want to
actually doing that.
And I want to touch on something you mentioned was too, like, you know, as a smaller MSP, I think I learned years ago, to your point, we had a client that was like $8,000 a month. And at the time that probably would have put them in our top 15 accounts or so. We were negative margin with them with all the labor time that we put into it. So they, and we couldn't keep them happy. There, you know what I mean? Like it was good money from a top line revenue perspective, but our techs hated working with the client. The client hated engaging with us. Everything was a problem. We couldn't do right by anything. We ultimately came to an agreement with the client to let them go and do whatever. Margin went up because we either let that tech go that we didn't need to support that revenue, or on the flip side, we said, all right, well, now we have all this extra time. What are we going to do with it? We were able to bring on 3 or 4 clients of the right type that fit what we needed to do, and we didn't have to staff up to accomplish that, and we unlocked margin dollar that way. So I think it's one of those things. And you know, in some of like the one-on-one consulting I've done with some operators that, you know, over the years, like I bet you if I was to ask the question, who struggled to hire somebody in the last 2 years, everyone would raise their hand saying there's not enough talent to bring in quickly, right? Flip the financial equation to say, all right, well, if I can't bring in enough people to serve my good clients, maybe I should look at where all of my time is going, get rid of the clients that aren't profitable, that are sucking up all of that time, and protect the clients that need that time, that fit with what we're trying to accomplish better. So there's a great business case to let that revenue go, because you don't need to hire that next person. You're going to protect the revenue that's actually generating margin dollars and EBITDA dollars and everything else. And you generally come out ahead. Yes, top line revenue is going to take a hit. EBITDA dollars, gross margin dollars, everything else is going to get better. And you got to trust it though. Like, believe me, I went to our executive team and our board for a long time with the idea that not all revenue is good revenue. There is bad revenue out there. And I got to the point of almost being, you know, threatened to get fired 2 or 3 times. Like, you want to get rid of revenue? You're stupid. What the hell is going on? We finally had that event and everyone goes, oh shit, yeah, that's how this works. That, you know, and then it got easier after that, right?
Well, you said you have to trust it. And I was literally, my comment was that is 100% a leap of faith, that is what's going to happen when you actually take that step. And I guess you can go collect all the data that you want, but some of it is, you know, again, back to the transparency, it's how your team is going to feel when you literally release them of this burden. And, you know, the double down that's going to happen inside of the business is, hey, now we have this time and we feel like we are re-engaged. This client was literally toxic to the organization. How do you move forward? There's no KPI in PSA that's going to give you that, you know, decision to move forward, right?
Yeah, and it really depends on your business strategy. I see Brian, you know, kind of made the comment out here about, you know, 20% profit on 5 million is the equivalent of 10% profit on 10 million, right? And that's true. And if you're trying to build value, if you're trying to get to the point that you either can sell the thing because you're at that point and you want to try to get the most out of it or whatever it may be, top line revenue is not necessarily one of the things that gets looked at, right? It's in our industry, it's, you know, EBITDA and you know, other things, markets and stuff like that. But I can tell you that an organization at 15% EBITDA is going to look better than a company at 5% EBITDA, whether or not you have $10 million more in revenue. You know, it really depends on what those bottom dollars work out to be. And really it kind of understanding that is a big part of, you know, kind of managing the business. And it's hard for small MSPs to do that because there's still a lot of like, well, $10,000 today is better than nothing tomorrow, right? And it's still $10,000 in the checking account. But if you can go, all right, well, I don't need that $5,000 in payroll. Well, that $5,000 in payroll is money back in the checking account or whatever it may be. And we kind of grow it from there, right? So it's a different way of looking at the numbers, but it can be hard, especially if you're, you know, bootstrapping it and really trying to get it through.
I think what Brian comments, your comment, Brian, is specifically telegraphs to me something that I talk about quite often, which is this idea of a lifestyle MSP. And I think there's a clear, and it's not bad by any stretch. In fact, that was exactly the MO of my own business. We did not deploy a sales and marketing engine to go and grow like crazy. We just wanted to continue our piecemeal organic growth because we were doing 3 million as a 5-person team. And so, by all SLI measures, the same as Pete, that 2.5x revenue per employee was absolutely there for us, and we were able to say we're a successful MSP, and that was good enough for me at that time. I just did not want the crunch of the growth personally in that context, because it's exactly what you were saying. You just have to do more things all at the same time in order to drive the growth and not kill the service desk and everything else. But a lot of vendors talk about this idea of the lifestyle MSP, because I think there's maybe this fake idea or misconstrued vision that every MSP wants to grow, or that every MSP wants to reach, these new heights and sell their business and everything else. When in reality, there's a ton of just operational stuff that can drive this net operational profit that is completely different, motion and I guess muscle than top line revenue growth. And you just go about it very differently. It's enablement, it's engagement, it's training and education. It's really not about, going to sell more necessarily. So that's my 2 cents on that.
I wanted to jump in and do a shameless plug. If you guys need to find out who your high effort, low value type of customers, Casey, put down your new to CS, please. Everybody join this class every Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Casey talks about trying to figure out your segmentation for your clients and your customers, and to try and find out who your low value, high effort type of people. So you can actually have that conversation. Hey, do we go ahead and fire these people, or do we actually try and move them to buy more of our stack and all that good stuff? So Casey, do your thing.
And by the way, I never say fire a client. I say free up their future.
Yes.
It's a small little mindset shift that I think makes me feel better about it.
Promote them to customer. That's what it does. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so I'll share this link as well. I've mentioned this in previous presentations, but we got into a little bit of this, the critical component that shared accountability plays in building transparency, because the client has to participate and they have to become part of the whole equation, and not just continue in this like, oh, you guys take care of it kind of thing. And no, I don't like the price for that. It's not approved. And so I'll just paste that in the chat. I had just captured a couple of thoughts on transparency, and I think you just talked about it, Pete. I think the work culture of the improvement of work culture in a transparent business is, I think, very, very tangible. And it's harder for a small MSP where everything is kind of in the open, I think, but in a larger MSP, I think it's easy for things to become just organically shaded for some of the folks in the organization. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, everybody wants a job that pays them well, that they enjoy to come to, and has people around them that they like to work with, right? And transparency of what we're trying to accomplish breeds a culture that aligns the people in the business to all of those outcomes, right? And it's one of those where, when we started down, like, we made a decision with a little bit of investment, 4 years ago or so, that, we wanted to, our top line target is, 70 million in 7 years. It was some, BHAG, right? And, we said, all right, to get there, we need a performance culture that allows us to your point, maximize revenue by technician, but we don't want to become sweatshop IT. That's not our goal. Thanks. And how do we do that? Well, we can do that, and obviously there's demands on our market from wages, and people want to get paid. I mean, I interviewed a kid out of a 2-year tech program that they told him he should be making $100,000 in the Midwest as a tier 1 tech, and it's like, I'm not going to do that. But like, how do we create an environment that allows them to earn more, to take care of their families, to invest in their families and their families' futures, and all those things along the way? Because to me, like, that's the ultimate give back, right? Is, one, I have personal wealth targets, and I'm going to do those and you know, and aim for those. But I think, you know, we have an opportunity to provide back to our team by paying them above average wages and stuff. And there's a couple of different ways that we can get there. But we went to going, all right, if we're going to do this, we need A players, right? We can't bring along the C players that are just showing up for a paycheck. And how do we build a culture and so it's gamification, right? Like we, you know, Bright Gauge threw it out there a long time ago when they first came to market with a bunch of stuff. But, you know, there's scorecards throughout the business and they're shared. So a tech can go into a team meeting and they see exactly how many tickets they close versus the next and what their CSAT is. And like, there's transparency in all of that stuff so that the team can quickly see who's rising to the top and who's not. And can we bring those people up? It's not necessarily like the GE, you know, what is it, the vitality curve model, right? Of like, you know, the top 20, the middle 70, and the bottom 10, you always cut the bottom 10, or, you know, try to, you know, work them through or up or out. But, you know, is there opportunity to invest in those people and get them to A, or do we quickly identify that they're always going to be a C player? And, you know, the hospital always needs employees. The state needs IT people. You know, if they want to go, you know, sit on those desks and do those things, that's great. You know, we're truly in the business of IT. We need to make money delivering IT, and we need the people that can do that.
And here's another, I think, academic, maybe held over idea, which is, oh, you have to build your business and by servicing 80% of your tickets or clients with the cheapest possible staff. And I think this is a curve that maybe inverts as you grow, because I think as you get bigger, you have to have more A players that ironically also deliver 4 times the outcome, you know, than an average player in the business. And so it's an interesting thing that I think is a held over idea. Go ahead, Brian.
We're working through this right now, where we're thinking about using like the skills management in our PSA maybe as a source of truth. But I was curious if you did that with your team when you started. You know, if you talk about career pathing and identifying what skills certain people have and what they can and can't do and how they can move up and what skills you want them to work on next, right? Was that like a whole management platform you used for that? Can you share any info on that?
This is going to sound horrible, but no. You know, what we did, because as we grow and, you know, there's this huge idea of investing in your team, right? And I'm not going to lie, our team is very much like our clients. There's probably 20 or 30% at the top that really drive the business forward. And there's the other 70 to 80% that help get through the day-to-day. Like we need them. They do really great work. They take care of our clients, but there's a lot of people that go, I just want to go to work and get paid. And I want to deliver quality, do a good job at the same time. It's not, I'm not going to bring, you know, generational stuff into this because that'll just sound like I'm on my front porch saying get off my lawn. But, but, you know, they're willing to do a really good job for a really good wage, but that's their goal. They don't have aspirations to have VP titles or be, you know, playing with all the coolest stuff all the time. They really just want to show up, take care of people, get a really good salary and go home at night and see their families or do whatever, right? Work on cars. They have their hobbies. There's that group. We don't really spend a lot of energy developing them because they're doing what they want to do for the most part. And what we found is we created more dissonance in our culture by trying to force them into a developmental system that they didn't necessarily want to participate in. Every quarter we would go in and say, all right, what's your goal for a certification? What's your goal for, you know, this or that? And let's really try to push this along. And they go, I don't really care about it. And then we had to take a step back and go, are they doing a really great job of taking care of our clients at the level that they're at? Are they happy with the money that they're making? And if that's the case, why try to force them into that? I will tell you, I hate certifications because it shows up on LinkedIn. Every recruiter in the world sees it, and all of your people are currently at risk. The moment they post that, I just got this AWS cert, great. Every other company that likes AWS is going to hunt those people down, and you just put your staff at risk. So get really good at what we're doing and do that. But like, if you want to get certed, we have a whole program for it. We'll invest in you. We'll pay for it. We'll pay for your time, the cert, all of those things, the training. We will encourage that if that's what you want to do. But we're transparent with folks. So and I think, you know, to where we started this, there needs to be it's a two-way engagement inside the business. You need, as an employee, you need to raise your hand and say, I want more. And if they raise their hand and say, I want more, then we sit down and we have the conversation of what does more look like? And is that a growth plan to leadership and management, or is it a growth plan into a different department with a different skill set, or what does that look like? But they need to be invested in their desire to want to move that forward for us to want to invest in them to be able to meet them in the middle.
Love that. Love that. It's dissonant because I think the natural way that we want to do it is for everybody to sing Kumbaya by the campfire together, right? And so I get how that's a little bit of a mind shift as well.
So
Great
from
question.
a healthier work culture, and I guess what we look at is a personality perspective, that I don't care if everybody wants to go get a cert. What I care about is everybody has shared interests outside of what we do. So when I interview people, I don't really care about your technical talent anymore. I'm more concerned, are you a musician? Do you like to go hiking? Do you like to play with Lego or play D&D or whatever it may be? Because I know that there's 15 or 20 or 30 other people in the company that like all of those same things. And you're going to be in a group of peers that can talk Star Wars or whatever the hell it is, and have that kind of fun and engagement inside the business while we're pushing everybody to get the job done. And there's a higher culture, I don't know, of that inside of an attachment, then they enjoy coming to work then, because they could be dealing with a server down and they're talking about the next video game that drops tomorrow, and get to see who's going to be on PTO unexpectedly, right? But so that's what we target.
Awesome. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of in line with the comment on the personality side. What about, has anybody looked into like Enneagram testing of how it does the tests of what the personality types are to kind of decipher on how to position that person within a company?
To an extent. So I will say that we've looked at things like DISC profile, and we just, I got my strength finders, stuff that we just, put our leadership team through, and, we're testing a lot of those things. I don't think there's any like framework to say these 10 things will make this person a good tech or a great account manager or whatever. But what we have looked at it from the perspective of, like, we acquired a business where everybody was like a below the line on the DISC profile. So everybody was like a C, right? It was like their primary trait. That was the worst acquisition we ever did, because everything was so tightly controlled and they were so sensitive to change and all of those things, that every time that we wanted to move the integration forward, it took 3-4x more time to push them through. And I had the least amount of employee retention in that, because acquisition and integration by its nature is disruptive. So we weren't able to provide them a ton of psychological safety inside of the business while we were moving through that. There was a certain level of chaos that comes with that. And that was a lesson learned in that acquisition integration, that, understanding kind of the core, where people sit is helpful to integrating successfully.
Wow, great question. Thank you, Pete. We're literally at the top of the hour. I feel like this could have gone on for a little while. There's many little threads of rabbit holes that start opening up as we have the conversation. I just want to say thank you again, Pete, for coming on to share a bit of your experience through your growth. And I think we're all just in a continuous learning process. So it's great to hear the perspective from a little bit larger MSP that's doing some cool things. Thanks everybody for joining us. Remember, again, next week we have Aaron Kenny. We're going to get into KPIs and metrics and all that stuff. Please share this session. I think we're trying to pivot it into a little bit more of this thought leadership level topics. We have some ongoing LCI sessions, as we were talking about earlier, the new to LCI, new to customer success, that I think are great opportunities to get into the more LCI specific topics. Of course, this is as a result of both Marnie and Alex departing the business, and I not having the ability to correlate a lot of this stuff directly in LCI as much. But I think these are equally important topics, and we're going to be expanding this to a bit of the wider scale pet community as well. Thanks everybody again. Pete, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I will follow up with you directly and hope to catch up at one of the upcoming conferences. Thanks, Mark, for helping join, and Brian, as usual, your contribution is appreciated. Thanks for the great questions, and we'll see everybody next week. Peace.